Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I hope you have a great day and don't forget to stay healthy during this pandemic situation. Well, today's material is the equivalence at word level. Well, I will explain this, but I'm not alone, of course. I'm together with my groupmate. There are Dewi Wardah, Puja Ananda, Lukiana Mardiah, and also myself, Fatimah Halaziza. Okay, but before we going deeper into our material today, let me give you an introduction about a kind of preface about our material today. So, based on Nidak and Teber book on 1964, they explain the closest natural equivalent as follows. First, equivalent, which points toward the source language message, and the second is natural, which points toward the receptor language, and the third is closest, which binds the two orientation together on the basis of the highest degree of approximation. Well, actually, Becker argues that by stating, in doing translation, a translator should have some strategies to achieve the intended meaning from the source text to the target text in any level equivalence. So yeah, there are different levels of equivalence. There are equivalence at word level, which we're gonna discuss today, above word level, grammatical level, textual level, and pragmatic level. So basically today we are going to discuss about word. It is better to know the definition of word. So according to Becker on her book 1992 entitled In Other Words, she stated that the smallest unit which we would expect to possess individual meaning is word. And again, defined loosely, the word is smallest unit of language that can be used by itself, stated by Pollinger and Sears on their book on 1968. So let's get jump to the material today.
Lexical meaning. Every word or lexical unit has something that is individual, that makes it different from any other word, and it is just the lexical meaning which is the most outstanding individual property of the word. From Zusta, 1971, page 67. The lexical meaning of a word or lexical unit may be thought of as the specific value it has in a particular linguistic system and personality it acquires through usage within that system. According to Cruz, 1986, there are four main types of meaning in words and utterances. Utterances being stretches of written or spoken text. And that four main types of meaning in words are propositional meaning, expressive meaning, presupposed meaning, and evoked meaning. Propositional versus expressive meaning. The propositional meaning of a word or an utterance arises from the relation between it and what it refers to, or described in a real or imaginary world, as conceived by the speakers of the particular language to which the word or utterance belongs. In these types of meaning, which provides the basis of which we can judge an utterance as true or false. For example, the propositional meaning of shirt is a piece of clothing worn on the upper part of the body. It would be inaccurate to use shirt to refer to a piece of clothing worn on the foot, such as sock. Expressive meaning. Expressive meaning cannot be judged as true or false. This is because expressive meaning relates to the speaker's feeling or attitude rather than to what words and utterance refer to. As you can see here, the difference between don't complain and don't whinge doesn't lie in their propositional meaning. Don't complain express dissatisfaction or annoyance about a state of affairs or an event. But in the expressiveness of whinge, which suggests that the speaker finds the action annoying. Presupposed meaning. Presupposed meaning arises from co-occurring restrictions, such as restrictions on what other words or expressions we expect to see before or after a particular lexical unit. These restrictions are divided into two types. The first is selectional restrictions, and these are a function of the propositional meaning word. We expect a human subject for the adjectives to use and an inanimate one for geometrical. Selectional restrictions are deliberately violated in the case of figurative language, but are otherwise strictly observed. The second is collocational restrictions. These are semantically arbitrary restrictions which do not follow logically from the propositional meaning of a word. For instance, laws are broken in English, but in Arabic, they are contradicted. And other example, in English, teeth are brushed, but in Germany and Italian, they are polished. In Polish, they are washed, and in Russian, they are cleaned. Because they are arbitrary, collocational restrictions tend to show more variation across language than do selectional restrictions. And the last is evoked meaning. Evoked meaning arises from dialect and register variation. Firstly, a dialect. A dialect is a variety of language which has currency within a specific community or group of speakers. It may be classified on one of the following here. The first is geographical. For example, a Scottish dialect or American, as opposed to British English, such as the difference between lift and elevator. The second is temporal. That words and structures used by members of different age groups within a community, or a word used at different periods in the history of a language, such as verity and really. And the third is social. That words and structures used by members of different social classes, such as scent and perfume, and napkin and serviette. And secondly is register. It is a variety of language that a language user considers appropriate to a specific situation. Register variation arises from variations such as here. The first is field of discourse. This is an abstract term for what is going on that relevant to the speaker's choice of linguistic items. For example, linguistic choices will vary according to whether the speaker is taking part in a football match or discussing football, making love or discussing love, making a political speech or discussing politics, performing an operation or discussing medicine, like that. And the second is tenor of discourse. This is an abstract term for the relationships between the people taking part in the discourse. For example, an American teenager may adopt a highly informal tenor with his or her parents by, among other things, using their first names instead of mom or mother and dad or father. And the third is mode of discourse. This is an abstract term for the role that the language is playing, such as speech, essay, lecture, instructions, and for its medium of transmission, it's like spoken and written. For example, a word such as re is perfectly appropriate in a business letter, but it's rarely, if ever, used in spoken English. But it's
Okay, I'm Dewi Wardah. I will continue to explain the problem of translation at word level. Non-equivalence happens at word level. It means that target language has no direct equivalence for a word which occurs in the source language. There are many possible problems of non-equivalence between two languages. Non-equivalence occurs when the message in the source language is not transferred equally to the target language. According to Mona Baker on 1992, in page 20, non-equivalence at word level means that the target language has no direct equivalent for a word which occurs in the source text. There are 11 types of problems in translation at word level. The first is culture-specific concept. The source language word may express a concept which is totally unknown in the target language, or abstract or concept it might relate to a religious belief, a social custom, or even a type of food. Example: the woman laughed, "Those turtlenecks you wear are so dated. You'd look much sharper in a tie." And the meaning is, perempuan itu tertawa. Kaos berleher tinggi yang Anda kenakan kuno sekali. Anda akan tampak jauh lebih cerdas dengan kemeja berdasi. The second is, the source language concept is not lexicalized in the target language. The source language word may express a concept which is known in the target culture but simply not lexicalized. That is not allocated a target language word to express it. Example: she wearing a beautiful day bag. The meaning is, dia memakai tas bahu yang indah. And the third is, the source language word is semantically complex. The source language word may be semantically complex. For example, he was wearing his usual charcoal turtleneck, Harry's tweed jackets, khakis, and collegiate cordovan loafers. The meaning is, seperti biasa, dia mengenakan kaos abu-abu tua berleher tinggi, jaket Harry's tweed, celana panjang khaki, dan sepatu kulit santai model mahasiswa. And the fourth is, the source and the target language make different distinction in meaning. The target language may make more or fewer distinction in meaning than the source language. For example, hello, hello, a sing-song British voice shouted from across the tarmac. The meaning is, halo, 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 teriak sebuah suara merdu beraksen Inggris dari seberang aspal. And the fifth is, the target language lacks a superordinate. The target language may have specific words or hypernyms, but no general word superordinate to hide the semantic field. For example, I'm sorry for saying that rude word. Saya minta maaf telah mengucapkan kata kasar itu. Next, the target language lacks a specific term or hypernym. More commonly, languages tend to have general words or superordinate but lack specific ones or hypernyms. For example, but Langdon could still make out slender silhouette of the world's largest obelisk, rising on the horizon like the spire of an ancient kingdom. The meaning is, tapi Langdon masih bisa melihat siluet ramping obelisk terbesar di dunia, yang menjulang di cakrawala seperti menara jam kuno. The next is differences in physical or interpersonal perspective. Physical perspective has to do with where things or people are in relation to one another or to a place, as expressed in pairs of words such as come or go, take or bring, arrive or depart, etc. Perspective may also include the relationship between participants in the discourse or tenor. For example, if you will come with me, sir, your car is waiting. Ikuti saya, Pak, mobil Anda sudah menunggu. The next is differences in expressive meaning. There are may be a target language word which has the same propositional meaning as the source language word, but it may have a different expressive meaning. For example, the English word butter, as in child or word buttering, was rendered by the more natural Japanese word tataku, means to beat, plus an equivalent modifier such as savagely or ruthlessly. The next is difference in form. There is often no equivalent in the target language for a particular form in the source text. For example, English has many couplets such as employer or employee, trainer or trainee, and payer or payee. It also makes frequent use of suffixes such as ish, boyish, hellish, greenish, enable, confessionable, conceivable, rectifiable, drinkable. The next is differences in frequency and purpose of using specific forms. Even when a particular form does have a ready equivalent in the target language, there may be differences in the frequency with which it is used or the purpose for which it is used. English, for example, uses the continuous ing form for binding clauses much more frequently than other languages. As a result, rendering every ing from English to target language would make a natural style. And the last is the use of loan words in the source text. Words such as au fait, chic, and al fresco in English are used for their prestige value because they add an air of sophistication to the text or its subject matter. This is often lost in translation because it is not always possible to find a loan word with the same meaning in the target language. For example, despite the man's influential family dynasty and massive wealth, the meaning is walaupun dinasti keluarganya sangat berpengaruh dan kekayaan luar biasa. But in Indonesian, dynasty isn't used because it's really make it Chinese identity of dynasty, and in Indonesian usually use keturunan.
Idioms and other figurative language. Most of the scholars quote that both idioms and fixed expressions, and especially the former one in most of the cases, show no flexibility to change in form and grammar. According to Collins English Dictionary, 2006, as an expression such as simile, in which words do not have the literal meaning, but are categorized as multi-word expressions that act in the text as units. According to Longman Idioms Dictionary, 1998, defines them as a sequence of words which has different meanings as a group from the meaning it would have if you understand each word separately. According to Cowie and Mackin, 1975, idioms should not be broken up into their elements because they are sometimes referred to as a fixed expression. Idioms and fixed expression are at the extreme end of the scale from collocations in one or both of these areas, flexibility of patterning and transparency of meaning. According to Mona Baker, 1992, they are frozen patterns of language which allow little or no variation in form and in the case of idioms often carry meanings which cannot be deduced from their individual components. She also mentioned that translator cannot do any of the following with an idiom. A. Change the order of the words in it. B. Delete a word from it. C. Add a word to it. D. Replace a word with another. E. Change its grammatical structure. The translation of idioms difficulties. 1. An idiom or fixed expression may have no equivalent in the target language. 2. An idiom may be used in the source text in both its literal and idiomatic senses at the same time. 3. An idiom or fixed expression may have a similar counterparts in the target language. 4. The very convention
of using idioms in written discourse. Translation of idiom strategies. A. Using idiom of similar meaning and form. According to Habizar 2016, this strategy is applied when the target language shares idioms that are equal in meaning lexical items. It means that the target language idioms have similar structure as in the source language, and the meaning of translated idioms is identical to the meaning of the source language idioms. For example, source language, dengan mata batinku aku tebarkan pandangan ke kelilingku sendiri. Target language, with my inner eye I scratch my vision over my own surroundings. The translator preserved the form and meaning of the idiom in the source text by translating the lexical items of the Indonesian idioms mata batin in the source text into their matching word in the target text, resulting in idioms inner eye, which also refer to similar thing. B. Using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. According to Mona Baker 2006, this strategy is used when the translator encounters the idiom which has no similar lexical items in the target language, but still share the similar meaning. For example, the source text, waktu itu sedang hujan gerimis dan dingin menusuk tulang. Target text, it was drizzling rain and the cold made its way into my bones. C. Translation by paraphrase. This is by far the most common way of translating idioms when a match cannot be found in the target language because of differences in stylistic preferences of the source and target language. For example, source text, sungguh memalukan kau menulis tentangnya, hei kau pengarang kepala besar. Target text, it would be so embarrassing if you try to write about him, you arrogant writer. The translator decided not to use any idiom to convey the intended meaning of idiom kepala besar. Instead, the translator used the word arrogant, which is similar with one of the meaning of the idiom kepala besar, which is sombong, to transfer the message of the source text idiom. D. Translation by omission. The omission strategy is when the translator chooses not to translate the idioms because the equivalent is not available in target language. The meaning is not easy to be paraphrased and it is omitted because of the stylistic reason. For example, source text, now Rachel was absentmindedly rubbing her index finger back and forth over her upper lip, her brow slightly forward. Target language, sekarang Rachel tanpa sadar menggosok-gosokkan jari telunjuk ke bibir atasnya, alisnya sedikit menggerut. The idiom meaning of back and forth is backward and forward. This expression is decidedly omitted from the Indonesian translation because without existence of this idiom, the meaning is still clearly perceived and does not affect the whole message.
Yes, so thank you for watching our videos presentations about today's material. So if you still have any confusion, please don't hesitate to drop your question on the WhatsApp group. See you later, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.